And this is probably not a good decision, but an hour of axe throwing.
Financial dashboard.
Hey, as long as your picture's not up on that stuff they're throwing into.
Go ahead.
That might send you a clear message.
Well, I'm leaving for the games. It's team building for them. I'm going to be there for lunch.
All right, looks good.
Raffy Dodge, we used to do that. They take us up to Top Golf or something.
Yeah.
As long as you weren't wearing your shirt, you had to buy your own cocktail.
Yeah, and they're going to still be on the clock, so they can't drink until 4.
Oh, I bet he uses.
We actually have a policy on that. I didn't.
Oh,
So
Yeah.
they're not going to be able to party till 4. Salary probably could,
I
but
assume. I don't know.
I'm going to have some hourly people there. But
Jose, make sure it might be worse than the chair under the table.
I tried to start the smack talk to get them going. I said, my last sentence was, so leave your seriousness at the office and let your hair down on Monday.
yeah.
And then in parentheses, I put,
They're not pulled up.
sorry, Ryan, Mitch, and Todd, because they're bald. So
I got the remaining 3.
I could get more HR violations by Monday, Bob, is what I'm.
No, it happens.
Is that's the map. Yep, I got it.
Now, is your daughter back from school then during the summer?
Yep. She was working at Romans, but they changed managers. And so he didn't know about her. He already hired for everybody.
Oh, no.
So she got back, she didn't have a job. Well, she went over to that Ashland Brewery that just opened up
Okay.
with the pickleball.
Looks like
courts
everybody's
and all
in.
that.
Yeah, they're all
Yeah,
green.
she's
So
waitressing over there. So,
Oh, in Ashton?
no,
Is it
it
Ashland?
sits here.
Yep.
You don't have
Ashland,
to.
yeah. I've seen some of their commercials.
Yep.
But yeah, you'll have to switch back and
She's there.
forth
She's
to
doing
show
pretty
that
good. She
screen.
just turned 19 too, right before.
That's the one part I do remember.
Okay.
So are they getting some business?
Yeah.
Good.
She pulled a double Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And she was crying about it. I'm like, you haven't done much this summer, so now
Make up for
make
it.
up for it. But her tips and everything have been really good.
Good. That's
So,
good.
and she's got a personality, so she can talk and make people happy.
That's all they want. As long as you don't have an attitude, you'll get a tip.
Hey, gentlemen.
Hey, David.
Hello.
Oh, it's nice. Hey, I'd sent Tony a note. Sorry to hear about your employee.
Oh, yeah. Bad deal. You knew Gabe, didn't you?
I knew of them, but a lot of people I knew of them and been putting it out there.
Old Sarkey family, great guy, public works. Been with us for about 15 years, but family's been around forever, generational family. So,
Yeah, Callentine was telling me he's probably the one guy on your guys' public works that he knew as well as any of them.
extremely personable guy.
You know, and it
Nice.
shakes. It
You got a
shakes.
room full of people, just the nicest guy and the
Yeah.
hardest worker. Just personable all the time. Want to be around him. Hard worker too, like middle of snowstorms, driving blizzards. He's the one jumping into the big truck to take the highway. Just taking
Shakes.
care of other people.
Shakes the whole organization because there's no explanation.
You know, his 10-year-old daughter found him.
And that even makes it worse. Because again, there's no explanation because you think you're giving relief to the other people that are still going to be here, and you don't understand the pain that you're going to cause them. That poor 10-year-old girl. I thought it was
Yeah, that's what
I thought it was his wife, but
Yeah,
which would be bad. But
it'd be bad, but to put that, I mean.
I know, I had your
put that on a
name
tape.
thing,
You-
but I
you
don't have a
affect her
place to
rest
put
of her
it.
life.
yeah,
You want to hold it?
And I get,
and you don't
I get
know.
that mental health is a sickness.
Yeah.
You got to say the person's sick, but they're still a part of. You don't.
That's probably not a bad
Get out
idea.
your house.
I know. I know.
That's like,
Put it on screen.
golfing field.
Another tough day for the fantasy baseball team.
Oh, yeah, Corey Oaks.
Corey Oaks,
Yeah.
they moved
Oh,
out of
four.
Yeah, I know. I golf with some. You golf with Corey.
Uh-oh. You guys ready?
He's tied for the
Welcome everyone to the Sarpy County and City's Wastewater Agency meeting. Today is Wednesday, June 25th, 2025. It's 4 o'clock. I'm going to call this meeting to order. The Nebraska Open Meeting rules are on the Open Meetings Act rules are on the north wall of the boardroom. In attendance today, we have the Mayor of Springfield, Bob Roseland, the Mayor of Gretna, Mike Evans, the Mayor of La Vista, Douglas Kindig, the Mayor of Bellevue, Rusty Hike, the Mayor of Papillion, David Black. I'm Don Kelly, Sarpy County Commissioner. We also have our CFO, Mark Setout, our engineer, Jeff Thompson, our administrator, Dan Hoynes, and our secretary is Lisa Hare. If you would, silence your cell phones and let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Is there anyone from the public that wants to address the agency board before we get started here? Okay, then we'll get right into our announcements and comments. Anything from the agency board?
Mr. Chair, may I?
Yes?
Could I address the board?
Yeah, sure, come forward. State your name and address for the record.
Randy Sump, 13505 South 72nd Street. So I have two different 200-acre parcels of ground.
Just a second. Can you have that turned up?
I can move it
Oh,
too.
there we go.
There we go.
Yeah.
That's
I
better.
have two 200-acre I'm a developer, and I have two 200-acre parcels of ground that one of them abuts Bellevue, so it's on the southeast corner of 60th and Capehart. The other one's at 120th and Schramm. Both of them abut existing development, streets stubbed into them, paved roads, new schools right near them. We're on the wrong side of the ridge line, and even though the trunk line's in, we've got people asking us about, can we buy that land to develop it? And we have to tell them, you can, but in talking with Dan, the committee doesn't have the money to put in the extensions from the force main up through the basins. And, it's been brought forward that, okay, how do we do this? So do we, does the developer that comes in, I have a developer that said, well, I'd put a lift station in and push it to the next subdivision. Well, the problem is that they didn't build that with extra capacity. So we don't know if we can do that. That might not be a reasonable solution. So the other solution that was brought up was, well, the developer could put the, maybe we could work through some kind of agreement with the cities, jurisdictional, that they could put the extension into the force main. Well, the one out on Schramm Road, that one's 4 miles from the force main. It wouldn't be feasible, really, for them to do that. The one over here that abuts Bellevue, that one's only 1 mile, so maybe we could do that. But I just wanted to bring it to your attention that you've got 400 acres of ground that's abutting existing developments with schools right across the street nearly, and we can't do anything with them. And so what I'm asking is there a way for this committee to talk with the cities in the jurisdictions and figure out a way for somebody to bond it, to figure out a way that there would be a way to pay for getting those extensions put into those basins so that they could be developed? Because the way I see it, if I was on the city side, in this case, both of these are in Papillion's jurisdiction. Well, there's 400 acres there that we can't develop, and it's the next logical step going west is this farm on Schramm. So have you hit the western boundary of where you can put residential development? Same thing on the east. They're obvious residential development areas that aren't served. So I know it's not, the committee can't just go, okay, we'll write a check and do that. But can you talk with the cities? I know you might be doing that with Gretna in this meeting, but is there a way to figure out a way to pay for maybe the developer would put it in if he was guaranteed that he could get some money back for doing it when the time came with interest or something. I don't know. The one over here on 60th and Capart's only 1 mile from the force main. So if I was a developer, I'd rather put $1 million into that than putting $1 million into a lift station that's going to be abandoned. So maybe they could work something out on that. So I just want to bring it to your attention.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
I would think that's not so much an agency as well. It is, but I would think if it's in Papillion's jurisdiction that you would start talks with the agency administrator to see if we can figure something out.
I think both, that I'll talk about a little bit later, but I think both the Sarpy County and the Gretna agreements that we're signing today do fundamentally change our historical policies that we've had and do open up the door for these conversations.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Appreciate you coming forward. We'll take it for action. Thanks. Administrator report, Dan Hoynes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Member mayors, at this portion of my report, I want to take a minute or two talk about the WIFIA loan. So the financial dashboard that the treasurer submitted shows that we have an $18.1 million balance. That's how much we have used up to this point. We spent several weeks, probably a couple of months, trying to figure out, okay, how much do we have left to do to complete phase 1A? And what other costs do we think we're going to need? I'll just take you to the end of that number. We believe as an agency staff that to finish phase 1A, to do the design, the permitting, and not the easements, we're way too familiar with that. That's something we'll have to address somewhere else, but design, permitting, and the decommissioning, speaking of lift station, segueing things, of the infrastructure that's there is about $33.2 million is what we believe. And so I've set up a meeting with Bonnie and her staff to talk through those things. We have some projections on what that does to debt service and some other things, but I wanted you to be well aware of the agency board. Those conversations are ongoing, and I anticipate in the very near future, once we can coordinate and come to agreement with Sarpy County on how to use those funds, that draw is probably going to be somewhere around the $33, $34 million range versus the $45 million range, just for various reasons. And So do you have any questions on that, Mr. Chair, member mayors? In there again, it's just out there, and we've talked about it superficially, but I want to make sure that, at least as your agency administrator, you know it's there. So I think the meeting with SARP's next week, so I think we'll certainly have more information by the July agency board meeting. A couple of other things. We continue to work on updates to the growth management policies. Our next meeting is August 5th with that. And we also did receive the preliminary notices from the treasurer and OPPD of the projected pilot revenues that the agency could invoice or will invoice the members. There's still 3 members only, Sarpy, Papillion, and Springfield paying. But last year we generated $713,000 in revenue on pilot, 1.1 million this year. That's a pretty significant increase in the pilot revenues. Now, if you look at it, Gretna and Bellevue aren't paying it. The really simple answer, and it's not even layered, is they have not annexed or owned anything south of the ridgeline since we've agreed to this. As they annex things, and it's in the ridgeline, they'll have the same responsibility or obligation, I should say, to this agency for the use of those pilot funds. That got several agenda items, so I'll just try to give you a little bit of time. Any questions on that, Mr. Chair, member mayors? Thank you.
Jeff Thompson, project engineer.
Chairman Kelly, agency member mayors, Jeff Thompson, project engineer for the agency. As you're well aware, when you were on site for the ribbon cutting here recently, there's not a lot of construction left to report. However, if I can just get you to switch out here, Jamie, the screen, show you just kind of an overall where things are at from that point in time. The green carpet that you see in the background is where we have the tent stage for the ribbon cutting, but for all intents and purposes, some of the greenery and vegetation starting to come in very well. Really all that's left for construction is the retrofitting of those 3 and 4 existing buildings that we have at the Springfield facility, and those are probably at about 60% complete. So I expect within the next 2 to 3 months that we'll be able to get Jacob, our field superintendent, occupied in those spaces, and he'll be able to run everything completely from the field at that location. So that's just another view of the site and some of the cleanup work that's being done right now. So not a lot to share on that side of things. Just a few other bullet points that I might point out. Now that we've been in O&M for a couple of months, we are experiencing a single issue at the Mitchell Road lift station. Had quite a bit of grease buildup in that lift station site. We think it's because of the infrequency of pumping and movement from that site because the flows are so low. It's stagnant and it sits for an extended period of time, and so we're starting to get a crust of they call it fog, which is fats, oils, and greases that build up in the water surface elevation level of that lift station. But we're working through some solutions there with Hawkins to get some aeration mixers put into there to kind of help break that up and keep things moving in that lift station site until we get more frequent pumping. Been working on quite a bit of loan closeout and grant closeout paperwork. Did some inspections with the SRF folks on site to do a closeout for our SRF loan. Those went really well, and they provided us with all the paperwork saying we're in substantial compliance with that loan and that everything looks good there. Did complete the land transaction with the city of Springfield. As you may recall, originally we were leasing that property for the lift station site at the city of Springfield, but we have completed all the paperwork that's been filed with the Register of Deeds office. So we do now technically own all the property where that lift station site's at. In exchange for that, we did deed property to the city of Springfield for an old railroad right-of-way that extended through town as well for some expansions of their linear park system through the city limits there. As Dan said, we've been assisting with the WIFIA loan balance calculations and some things there. Also starting to look at populating our asset management software and keeping track of all of our assets and getting preventative maintenance schedules put together for those kinds of things so that we know that we're staying on top of regular routine maintenance so that we don't have a hopefully catastrophic failure at any given point in time. Coordinating efforts with HDR's roadworks team for the Platteview Road expansion. Just there's some things there that we want to make sure they're well coordinated so we don't end up with any issues with our sewer line that extends through there. Then been working on several inquiries for development around the whole southern part of the county, extending all the way from Bellevue to Gretna. There's been a lot of interest, a lot of phone calls, and a lot of inquiries there that we've been providing information and data on. I guess all that being said, just a lot of little odds and ends things that we're trying to clean up and take care of and close out now that things are coming to a head on the end of the construction side of things, and really looking forward to getting the loan scope for the WIFIA loan amended, hopefully after we meet with the county, and get started on the design and permitting phase of that project. So be happy to answer any questions you might have.
So that Mitchell lift station, the city of Springfield goes through there, right?
Excuse me?
The city of Springfield's flow goes through that?
It does, yes.
So even with the whole city of Springfield, it's not enough of a flow. So at what point, I mean, in general terms, do you anticipate?
Well, so right now
it's built for Gretna, right?
Yeah, it's built for the entire subbasin of Buffalo Creek and Springfield Creek, quite frankly. So at some point, yeah, it will be cycling. The lift stations will be cycling more frequently. But right now, there's a huge reservoir, a big underground reservoir that's, that flows discharging to. That fills up to a certain elevation. It kicks the pumps on. The pumps pump to Mitchell, and that fills up, kicks those pumps on, and punches it over to our transition structure on 27th Street.
Can you adjust the pumps, the level, so that the pumps kick on until we get a more
we have adjusted them to the extent we can.
Okay.
There's not a whole lot more of adjustments we can do. I mean, we want to be efficient. We don't want our pumps running all the time.
Right.
So we're running about as efficient as we can right now to try to help that problem. I really think that the solution is the aeration mixers, and they're pretty inexpensive. I think they're $10,000 or $12,000 a piece, and the designers are recommending a couple of them in there to kind of keep things at a minimum. But I think it'll certainly help the situation.
Thanks.
You bet. Any other questions? Thank you.
Mark, CFO report.
Good afternoon, board members. I'm Mark Setout, the agency treasurer. This is the agency's monthly financial dashboard report for the month of May. It's fiscal 24-25, period ending May 31, 2025. Revenue, no change in connection fees from April to May. We have still collected a significantly higher amount of connection fees year to date than forecasted. Flow revenue. We are receiving flow from both Springfield and Sarpy County at this point. We have seen that tick upwards in the last few months. We invoiced almost $47,000 in flow charges in May. However, we are still considerably under our forecasted numbers for the year due to several factors. All of the revenue buckets here remain unchanged, with the exception of interest income. Interest income is on track with forecast. We have been collecting on average about $16,000 a month in interest for the last 2 quarters from the 5 Points Bank business checking account. As noted last month's meeting, we are looking to invest around $2 million of cash on hand into a 7-month CD at an interest rate of 4.3% APY through 5 Points Bank. We believe this term and rate to be beneficial to the agency's current financial position. We're working to finalize that next month. And just to be clear, we are using revenue from connection fees for this investment product in compliance with any federal or state loan agreements the agency has in place. Expenses. We are 92% of the way through the fiscal year, and our total expenses are at 58% of budget. The The biggest driver here is the lower than budgeted project costs. I won't go through these expenses individually, but I am happy to answer any specific questions anyone may have on a particular line item. Next up are the loan balances. We received the reimbursement for the final $2.5 million for the SRF construction loan, as Jeff was noting there. So that balance did increase. It took some additional time to close out the loan and receive final payment from the NDEE. The SRF planning loan remains unchanged. We did receive and book the invoices from SRF for the second half debt service payments for both of the SRF loans. That's $500,000 for the construction loan and $250,000 for the planning loan. And that's that's reflected there on the right-hand side of the loan balance section under the debt service payments. December and June are the scheduled months for paying those invoices each year. So the next one will come in November and it'll pay out in December of 2025. The WIFIA loan balance went up $475,000 as we continue to draw reimbursements from that account as we incur project costs primarily from Hawkins. Pilot funds remain unchanged since earlier in the fiscal year. Dan noted that we did receive pilot information from the county treasurer's office via OPPD that will drive the pilot invoicing that we will do in mid-July, same as we have in previous years following that same procedure. So those calculations are $346,000 more in total than we had forecasted in the budget and rate model. Cash. 5 Points Bank checking balance reflects that $2.5 million we received from SRF. The Pinnacle Bank payroll accounts lower balance reflects the extra payroll withdrawal that occurred in May due to the 3 periods in the month. That is all I have for you today. Happy to answer any questions you may have.
You'd originally mentioned some revenue was down for several factors. What are those factors?
For the flow revenue?
Yeah.
I believe there was a delayed start to the flow that we received from Springfield.
Okay, thanks.
For the most part.
Yep.
Any other questions? Thanks, Mark.
Thank you.
Okay, that brings us to the consent agenda. We have 2 items on the agenda this month. Does anybody want to discuss those? You can make a motion to amend, otherwise I'll take a motion to approve as published.
I'd make a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion by Papillion, second by Springfield. Any discussion? Please vote.
Mayor Hike, are you able to vote?
Put it as
I got it.
abstain since I was gone
I
last
got
time.
it. Yeas 5, abstain, all of you. Motion carries.
Okay. On the regular agenda, item number 6 is Resolution 12. It's approving an interlocal agreement, IT services between Sarpy County and the city's Wastewater Agency in Sarpy County. Dan Hoynes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mayors. We have 2 IT-related resolutions. This is the first one, and this one reflects the it's a 3-year agreement and an hourly rate to provide IT services. The agreement, I think it lists 9 different areas where they're going to support us. The primary ones are tech support, equipment and inventory, training, software, GIS. There's some other smaller ones, but those are the really key things. It ranges from $140 to $170 per hour, depending on the service. Just the basic support's $140, but when you get into GIS, more skills, more cost, it's $170. We fluctuated a little bit last year simply because of the move, but we project a little over $10,000, and we have that in the budget, and it's funded, so would request your support and approval of this resolution.
Questions for Dan? Motion, please.
Motion.
Second.
A motion by Gretna and a second by Papillion. Any further questions or discussion? Please vote.
Yea, 6, nays none, motion carries.
Okay, item number 7 is the interlocal agreement for the hosted IT services. Dan?
Yeah, IT related, Mr. Chair, member mayors. This one's pretty simple. They host one server for us, and that does all of our backup and if disaster recovery, those type of things. So, also a 3-year agreement and $1,200 a year costs that we also have within the budget for the upcoming year. So would ask your support of this.
Okay, any questions for Dan?
Motion to approve.
Second, Bellevue.
Okay, motion by LaVista, second by Bellevue. Any further comments? Please vote.
Yea, 6, nays none, motion carries.
Okay, item number 8 is Resolution 14, approving the agreement for the connection and wastewater service between Sarpy County and the city's Wastewater Agency and Sarpy County. Dan?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, member mayors. It seems like it takes forever to get these agreements done, and I feel like I should sit up here for an hour or so and explain it to you, but you don't want that. I don't want that. And so I'll just try to take the 3 or 4 bullet point approach and answer any questions you may have. So we assigned a MOU with Sarpy County in December because we didn't have time to get all of the agreement finalized. We've been operating, that actually expires here at the end of the month, that MOU. And so the base of this agreement really follows the Springfield agreement and some of the others. There are some differences, but what does this agreement do? Primarily, Mr. Chair and member mayors, it's an agreement for the agency to provide wastewater service to the county within the agency jurisdiction. That's what it does. As part of that, all current and future connections will comply with agency plans and specs. The member, in this case Sarpy County, agrees to charge and remit the agency fees, both connection and user rates. I alluded to this one in my early comments. There is a specific unique paragraph in this one for the agency to pay for the decommissioning of the lift station infrastructure. We've had a lot of discussion about this, and I'll tell you, I think it's a fair ask. There's a range of what this may cost. The state of Nebraska is going to drive that range. It's in their right-of-way. There's a low-cost estimate we have of like $375,000 just to cap it and walk away. But if they tell us you've got to carry it out and remove it, we could be looking at $1.6 million in that. And so working with Sarpy County, they're going to request to just cap it from the state, and that's what our first approach is going to be. But this agreement authorizes the agency to spend up to $1.6 million to decommission that infrastructure that's in there. So again, really depending on state requirements. Again, there's 149 pages here, I think, when I looked at it. So maps and such. That's really the 3 bullet point, 4 important things. And again, would ask that you, respectfully ask that you would approve this agreement.
Just for the record, when we agreed to do this for Springfield, it was actually almost though a trade-off for the land, correct?
The term that we used a couple of years ago with Springfield initially was an equal exchange of value. So that's why we agreed to decommission. Yes, that's the term, Mayor.
I don't see an equal exchange of value. I'm going to vote no on this, not just be forthright with everybody.
Right. If I may articulate that, the reason that the staff thinks that there is an equal exchange of values, the apples to apples comparison, that when we looked at the Springfield one, it was $350,000, I think, changing the parkland, doing some other stuff. But if we had elected, we the agency, to not repurpose those buildings and we're required to do the same thing on the Springfield site that the state may require of us, it would have cost us $1.5 million. Right. But because we had this exchange and we benefited, they benefited, the equal exchange of value got a little blurry. I'll confess to you, and I don't think we should always pay for decommissioning. I'll just tell you that. But I think it was a fair ask from Sarpy and been fairly negotiated. And because of that, I know we've talked, Mayor, I really respect your position on that. But from an agency and staff, we think there is an equal exchange here.
Any other comments or questions?
Yeah, I'm going to build on that a little bit. The decommissioning is the one that I had the question on, because we are authorizing up to 1.6 million, and I do see it very different from Springfield on the exchange of value. Mm-hmm. And I'm not sure up to this point that we have used agency dollars for member infrastructure and decommissioning of member infrastructure. So I think we're opening up a door that we may or may not want to open. And if we do use agency dollars, I'm going back to Mr. Sump's conversation a little bit, we're using $1.6 million of agency dollars for a member's infrastructure where we could be using that $1.6 million to extend his $1 million to the permanent line for permanent agency infrastructure and actually bring revenue and property tax dollars on. So I'm in a quandary on this one. Of I don't want to hold up the agreement, but I strongly disagree with paragraph 11. And I think it goes to the core, partially a core to Mr. Sump's question. And I do think it's going to have some unintended consequences on policy of expectations that are being set that we can now come and ask for that maybe we haven't asked for before. So I don't think it's good policy. I'll probably end up voting for it because I don't want to hold up the agreement. But I don't think it's good policy.
That's fair, Mayor. And this wasn't something we decided on last week. This started conversation between me and Bonnie a year ago. And my initial position was very similar to some of yours. But when you really do the math and go back and look at the historical context of why we did what we did there, and what we may have been required, and then you use the term agency dollars. The intent, and I've been very clear that if our intent is to use the WIFIA loan, that's part of the $33.2 million.
Well, the WIFIA loan is agency dollars.
I get it. We've got.
Now I get I get the extra thing that the county is the backstop. So I absolutely get the county side of the request. But from an agency policy perspective, it's agency dollars, and I think it's bad policy.
That's a fair argument, sir.
Thank you.
They are going to require it to be removed.
They're going to be capped or removed, Mayor. We've got to do something.
We're going to spend the 1.6.
What's that?
We're going to spend the 1.6.
The initial, and again, the agency made the initial overture with Hawkins to say, hey, can we just cap these? And they said, no, you're going to do 1.6. Now, that was just a telephone call. It wasn't a formal request to go through. And so at this point, the county's going to make the request, and hopefully we'll be able to cap it. And then it's the low number, the 375. But if we got to go in and tear that up and pull those pipes out, it's going to be at least 1.6. And the agreement does, I think, look behind Adam, can nod his head, I think that our exposure ends at 1.6. Is that right, Adam?
It's not to exceed. Yeah.
Not to exceed. And I see Bonnie moving closer. I don't know if she wants the talking stick or not, or if you have questions for her.
I do have one more because I'm still debating my vote, and this will help on it. I see it very different from the Springfield situation, so I want to set that aside. You mentioned it's a fair ask for the agency to pay. Can you just explain the fair ask a little bit more?
From my perspective, Mayor Black, that is that had we taken the same approach, and again, I'm going to use Springfield simply because that's how I validate it. If we had went in there and torn that pipe out and made it all green grass, no buildings, demos, pulling pipe out, it would have been $1.6 million. So that is a similar cost for the similar scope of work in my mind.
Then just the last question from the loan agreement. If we use WIFIA dollars to pay this, is that an authorized use under the loan agreement of those funds?
It has to be part of the modification request that again, we'll be talking with the county staff next week.
Yeah.
Then we have to get that authorized, and then the county board has to approve it, and this board has to approve it.
So we won't pay the 1.6 before that and be in default on our WIFIA loan?
No. We won't do the work until we get a proper modification that the county's agreed on and WIPI's agreed on, and I don't think it's time sensitive. But.
Yeah.
So there's some checkpoints in there, Mayor.
Yeah, thank you.
It's weird. You looked on my left side.
No. Good afternoon, Bonnie Moore, Sarpy County Administrator. Just want to say thank you to the agency staff and attorneys for working through this agreement with us and the administrators. I understand that 1.6 million looks like a big request, but I want you to keep in mind the total financial contributions too that the county's made, including 7 million in ARPA funds, and also that line, our line has generated 12 million in connection fees to the agency. So I think when you look at a fair exchange of value, that's going to depend on, the eye of the beholder a little bit. To me, this is a fair agreement, and it makes sense to move forward with it. I encourage you to approve it.
Thank you. From a policy standpoint, I think you make a good point, though. We got to think this through moving forward.
Yeah.
Because this could incur a lot of costs, significant costs for the agency moving forward, unless we nail down a policy that either allows it or it doesn't. It's a lot of gray here. So,
well, I think approval of the agreement establishes the policy that every agreement's up for negotiation.
Sure.
If I may, get a little bit ahead of myself. Talk to the chair and vice chair about this. In the Gretna agreement, we would not agree to paying for decommissioning. The one you're going to vote on next, if there's decommissioning cost and it's approved, we don't pay for those.
Oh, I know, and that's where I'm going is, we approved both of these agreements tonight. Our policy basically becomes there is no policy. Everything is individually negotiated, and that's the new door and the expectation that's being set, and we will leverage that because this board just set that policy.
But aren't we already doing that, Mayor? I mean,
I don't believe we have.
We're doing these service agreements between the agency members individually. We've done Springfield.
Oh, I don't disagree with the agency agreements. It's the reimbursement of the member infrastructure and use of agency dollars for temporary and the reimbursement policies. That's where I'm focused. And that's why I'm not going to hold up the agreements, because I do agree with the agreements. It's that narrow part that we were going to do a policy on, and we haven't done that. So I've said enough.
Does that sound like an amendment or something, or amended motion, or? I don't know. I'm
going to look, knowing where Doug's voting, I'd look to him for that. My only amendment would be to pull 11 out or table it and renegotiate, but I'm not going to sidetrack this agreement for that.
Gotcha.
Well,
I just want to be on the record of the policy we're establishing with this, and other members now should have the expectation to leverage this.
And and I'm always going to be upfront. I hate it when my council surprises me with a no vote without a reason, so I wouldn't do that. Doesn't mean you have to agree with me either. Looking at the what if and the worst case scenario, Randy, I don't mean to put you on the spot or another developer, but let's say Papillion comes back and says, well, we want the agency to help pay for this infrastructure. Are we setting precedent with what we're doing here for when this case comes up again? That then it gets into the legal system, and they don't care if we're making decisions based upon individual circumstances. They're going to look at our history. That's my concern with this.
Well, if you're talking about the agreement at hand, the MSA, I don't think there's an issue there. As we move forward and start talking about the Gretna agreement and some others, I think that may be, a fair question, even though I don't want to talk about the Gretna agreement until we get there. I don't think it impacts this one.
Right.
Okay.
Adam, nod your head or say, okay.
Okay. That's all I got now.
Okay. All right. Any other comments or questions? Okay, then I'll entertain a motion on resolution 14.
I'll make a motion.
Okay, I'll second it. So we have a motion by Gretna and a second by Sarpy. Discussion? Comments?
I just want to make one last comment with my vote, just so it's for the record. I do see that we're establishing a bad policy with Section 11 in there. I do not disagree with the rest of the agreement. I'm voting for the rest of the agreement. To Mr. Sump's question, I do believe these are agency dollars that could be used for permanent infrastructure, which would generate agency fees and would aid that development. And by spending these dollars for temporary infrastructure, I think we're actually hurting the agency a little bit. I get Sarpy County's request and that they've contributed other things. Other agency members have also contributed other things. So that argument doesn't weigh with me a lot. I'll leave it at that as to go with my vote on the record.
I think where you stand depends on where you sit. And there's a lot of things that Sarpy County could have done with ARPA money. And we plowed it into this agency. And so, it's just going to be a matter of, your perspective. So, I mean, we're arguing about things that I feel Sarpy County made the argument possible in the first place.
And I totally get the teamwork and everything else. That's not my concern. I stated my concern. Never once mentioned Sarpy County. I just want that on the record.
I 100% agree.
Yeah.
This is a policy concern for me and this agency board moving forward, I think. And we're going to have to come up with a consistent a consistent approach moving forward. I don't know what that looks like. We're not going to solve it today, but I'm sure we all have some good inputs that we can plow forward with. Please vote.
I think it is. Well, it is, but.
Yeas 5, abstain La Vista, motion carries.
Okay, item 9 is Resolution 15, granting a boundary change request under the agency's growth management plan and approving first amended and restated member service agreement for connection and wastewater service between the agency and the city of Gretna, Nebraska. Dan.
Hey, Jamie, if I can get you to get my screen up here. So while it's coming up here, Mr. Chair, member mayors, I'm just going to say the first thing out of my mouth here is going to be from an agency, staff, and consultants perspective, we support this Gretna agreement. And I'm going to walk through a couple of reasons and validate that and tell you why. And it's in this timeline. So over 3 years ago, Gretna made an inquiry and said, hey, we need, I think it was 1,000 originally, but it kind of morphed into 1,100 acres to accommodate development. And it's in your jurisdiction, so will you move the line? It was over a year later then, Gretna met with each city in Sarpy County to present. There was almost a year. There was some back and forth, but nothing of substance really took place for almost a year until Mayor Evans started his tour of telling you why this was important to him. It was after that, but 8 months later, that the first resolution was approved to accommodate that. And that was this resolution. Again, we get a lot of detail here, but the really important bullet point here was Gretna was required to collect and remit connection fees, but not required to collect and remit agency user rates. And that was a point of pain for some of the members in here. So we go another, 7-8 months for the next Gretna agreement. And that, well, again, 108, the first one, 49.22. There was a second boundary adjustment, and this time Gretna was required to collect 100% of the connection fees and 100% of the user rates and remit those all back to the agency. That was the second one. So there we've got over a 2-year period, 3-year period. They've been told that you can do that, but you got to pay us, and we had no cost in there. So just this year, 225, Mayor Evans sent a letter to all of you and requested temporary service of the 1,100 acres. On 3/26, the Gretna request placed on the agenda for discussion. They said, we want it. So that was this board meeting in March in this room. The guidance provided by the agency board was to work in an agreement where Gretna would receive 75% of the user rates as a reimbursement. Agency would keep 25% along with 100% of the connection fees. There was some more work then internally that went on. Agency provided preliminary financial analysis regarding financial impact of granting the 1,100 acres with the 75% reimbursement. 523, Gretna sends a proposed MSA proposing the 75% along with a request that they wanted it on this meeting over a month ago. 528, the draft Gretna MSA was sent to the admins and discussed at a 529 meeting. It was also discussed, the Gretna agreement was discussed in detail on an in-person meeting on June 12th. And on June 13th, a couple weeks ago, the Gretna agreement in the form that you have was sent to all of the administrators and informed it to be placed on this. So I want to walk through the finances of our analysis here. And again, this is a team effort with Carollo. Mark set out, me, Jeff, Adam, primarily looking through this. But what we did here is we didn't change the way that we looked at our assumptions. 5 EDUs, this is what we started doing 17, 18 per acre, 60% development rate, 2.7 people per economic development unit. We left all of those variables for our finance agents in place when we looked at this Gretna model. 100 gallons max monthly, average flow 80 gallons per day. And so that brought us to, and get the left side. So the total projected rate revenue, this is rates, is $3.4 million. And as Mr. Chair, Member Mayors, over a 13-year period, that's the time period that we put it at. If you go up to the top, you can see it's 1%, 4%, up to at 100% in year 13. Over that 13-year period, that there would be $3.4 million generated in rate revenue. And if this agreement's approved, Gretna would be allowed to retain 2.5 of that rate revenue. They would give the agency $851,000. The connection fees, this agreement over the 13-year period is projected to generate $30 million in connection fee, all retained by the agency. And as I presented to the administrators, and I'll present to you as a board a couple weeks ago, you approved a master agreement, a master plan in November, saying blue lines before green lines, right? That's still there, the November 24th, I think. So that $30 million can be used, should be, unless you have a policy change of policy, is that $30 million is designated by this board to build blue lines first, green lines second coming in. This agreement doesn't change that. This agreement also goes back to those first two agreements I mentioned and says this supersedes them. So the agreements in 23, 24 would fall under the 75% reimbursement agreement. Last comment here, I guess, because this is really a long one. You'd like to, I'm going to pull one more map up here. So Mr. Supp, and we've had discussions about this. So the purple, Mr. Chair, Member Mayors, is what we're talking about. You can see the adjacency to the city of Gretna, right? That's where they need that, and they need to go to Omaha coming up. The agreement says that they continue to get the 75% until the approved authorized costs are paid off, or we get there tomorrow, they're not going to get paid for it back. Now, we had a lot of discussion about that at the admin, and I think there should be maybe more discussion about that moving forward, but I think for the 3 years that Gretna's waited, and they're okay with this language at this point, I think that can be a decision later. But that's the 1,100 acres here that's going to come in. I mean, it may all come in year 13, it may all come in 3 years, who knows? But that $30 million, and from an agency perspective, a person that I think is paid to defend the interests of all of you and all of your administrators in here, the fact that we're banking that $30 million and we're not proposing to use it for anything other than the agency master plan, to me, makes this a fair agreement. And I think Gretna's waited long enough. If you look, Mr. Sump's questions, fair questions. If you look at this map, you see the blue lines, right? Bellevue, Papillion, Springfield primarily. Those blue lines and the green lines, so there's $251 million worth of cost today. So we're talking, let's just be real, right? The struggles we have had from WIFIA loans, we spent 150. So the reality of building those green and those blues, it's going to take something Herculean and significant. It's not going to happen overnight. So, again, every dollar counts, right? But $1 million doesn't move the needle for our need here. It's more important to get these things in. And so I'll pause there and answer any questions on the Gretna agreement that you may have. And I don't know if Gretna wants to address Mayor Evans, you or your staff.
Yeah, so first of all, thanks for the staff and Dan and everybody in the mayor's taking time to go through this.
3 years?
3 years. And it's, it's been a frustrating process for a lot of people but sometimes, it's hard going through these things, quite honestly. And we started 3 years ago, not because, Randy showed up with a development idea. Mm-hmm. We had dozens of Randys. And then we started to see the opportunity, not, for the state, for the county, and also for Gretna, quite honestly, mm-hmm. not just on, economic growth, but also, county could increase valuation. And then we can, if we can bring $30 million to the agency, I think that helps financial viability. And also we start building more. I hope we all get built out. In the meantime, I think we have a great opportunity, and we worked with, the City of Omaha to make sure they would take the sewer with the engineers. And, I don't think it was even the agreement Gretna would hope we would have got, but I really think it's fair and beneficial for everybody. And I think it really exemplifies what we do at Sarpy County. I was there yesterday with the sheriff, willing to come out to our part. And I think it's even though we kind of disagree and we challenge each other, whether it's on topics or requests, the fact that we collaborate and kind of pound through these topics, I think we come up with solutions other places don't. I think we deliver a higher level of service for lower costs than most people don't. And I don't think it's a coincidence that Sarpy and the entities within Sarpy are more dynamic than anybody else in the state. I think it's because we kind of broke the mold. We worked together, and it's not easy, but I think the solution, we kind of came on a pretty fair solution. So my staff is here to answer questions along with Dan.
So we respectfully request approval of the agreement, sir.
Thanks. Any questions or comments?
Just a quick one. Just a concern of mine, and I don't want to deny anybody growth, but does this open land that maybe we might be missing out on developers coming down? That was my one question.
If I had a crystal ball, Mayor, I could answer that. But I will tell you, we went through this thing 7 ways to Sunday, and I will say yes, there is going to be some impact that might have otherwise went there to that, but we will never be able to. There are too many variables why a developer chooses to go somewhere that's in there. And so here's what we know. There's heavy development pressure out there. And has been, and we've had a member, one of us, raising their hand for 3 years, saying, help, we need some help here. We're part of this team. So in total transparency, there is some displacement that takes place, but I think the quicker we get that, and we won't control it. Nobody in this room will control it. Or can we accurately predict it?
I'm going to sound a little bit the same because I do not disagree with this agreement. I'm going to vote for the agreement, so might be assured I'm voting yes on the agreement. I'm just back on the policy side of what this does. Just one thing you'd mentioned when we were talking about the trunk line and the massive dollar, and we can't do that all at once. You said $1 million doesn't move the needle. $1 million may build Mr. Sump's line on permanent infrastructure, and incrementally we are opening up the agency and getting real development, real connection fees, real property tax to the county, and real revenue coming in here. So I disagree with you. $1 million doesn't move the needle. $1 million makes a major impact and speeds things up and gets momentum going. But on the policy side, I went back to the March meeting, and I actually went back to the meeting and listened to it 3 times because there was so much discussion. I just wanted to make sure I was hearing things right and not making things up. What I heard from the policy side on the general policy for pioneering and reimbursement. And it was towards the end of the discussion. There's a little bit of back and forth of what's the intent and what am I working on? What's the direction I'm giving? What I directly heard in there, and I think, Dan, you closed with it, was you were to determine a reimbursement policy, not just for Gretna, but works for all members. I think that's a quote. And it was also talked about reimbursement to any agency member who advances agency infrastructure. So to set the stage with that a little bit, this does not do that. This is 100% Gretna policy, silent on the rest of it. So this agreement, I do not believe, meets the intent of the motion in March, the full motion. I'm still going to vote for it. But again, from a policy perspective, I'm disappointed in that. Because, Don, to your point, we can work later on a general policy. No, we don't. We're setting policy now, and it's ad hoc. The other thing is, up to this point, at least from Papillion's perspective, and I think Mr. Sumps heard it, we've tried, I think, to be true to the growth management plan and the reserve plans, and we don't use agency dollars for temporary infrastructure. That puts it all on the developer. And so through that, we've turned development away from Papillion plan. We've had developers come to us, and we've said no, because of the policy we have. Between the Gretna policy with the reimbursement, pioneering embedded in it, and the reimbursement of up to the $1.6 million of agency dollars to SARPI for temporary infrastructure, I think we've fundamentally changed the rules. And I just want to be clear, because developers watch these meetings and they hear what Papillion has been saying. And up until yesterday, we have told developers no. Our policy in Papillion is going to change after today. Any developer is free to come and ask for anything. And because we have an inconsistent policy, we're free to come ask for agency dollars to help pioneer and reimburse, and we can negotiate those.
I think that's fair.
Thank you. I just want to get it on the record, because it will look like a disconnect when people see Papillion's actions yesterday versus tomorrow. And I just want to make it clear, we're following the new policy.
I appreciate it, and I think that's fair, Mayor.
But I am voting yes, Mike.
Well, no, and I think we're just trying to do something for everybody. I mean, it's not like Gretna's wanting to seize this. We just think it's a chance to really start growing our county and do some good things. And if policy changes, a lot of things change as times change. COVID broke everything. So then I think we've learned a lot through this process, and maybe we realize, Papillion has different needs, and we need to help them to realize this. So we're all about that.
Any other comments, questions? Okay, then I'll entertain a motion on this resolution.
I'll make a motion to approve this resolution.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion by La Vista and a second by Gretna. Any further comments or discussion? Please vote.
Yeas 5, abstain Roseland. Motion carries.
Okay, thank you. Okay, item number 10 is executive session.
I'll make a motion for the protection of the public interest that I move that we go into executive session to discuss a legal matter.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion by La Vista and a second by Papillion to go into executive session. Please vote.
Yeas 6, nays none, motion carries.
Okay, it is now 4:57. We're going to go into executive session where our discussion will be restricted to a legal matter, and the agency board will adjourn to a different room, so you don't have to leave unless you just can't wait to see us again, so then you can stick around. Otherwise,
So, Mr. Chair,
thanks for coming.
if you
Yeah.
could designate in the closed session, the agency administrator and the attorney representing the agency as the people inside, and any agency administrator that's here can come into the closed session.
Okay,
Is that fair?
yes.
Okay.
Check, okay. It is now getting late. No. It is now 5:16. At 4:57, we went into executive session where our discussion was restricted to a legal matter. I need a motion that we return to the regular session.
Motion, Bellevue.
Second.
Motion by Bellevue, second by Gretna. Please vote.
There we go.
Yea, 6, nays, none, motion carries.
Okay, our last agenda item is number 11, Resolution 16, authorizing the agency's board chair to execute a settlement agreement of appeal of the agency's condemnation of necessary property rights to Hoynes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Member mayors would respectfully request approval of this resolution inserting the amount of $200,000.
I'd make that motion.
Okay, motion by Papillion, second by Springfield. Any further comments or questions? Please vote.
Yea, 6, nays, none, motion carries.
All right, our next meeting is July 23rd, 2025. All the agenda items have been addressed as published, and the Sarpy County and Cities Wastewater Agency Board is adjourned.
Good job.